Hey.
Hey, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to make this frame perfect. What do we need? What do we need? We got Roberts. You know we don't have? Freddie Freeman. That's what we don't have. Now you got Freddie? Yeah, Freddie. Kirsch. Yeah, looks good. Cool. Let me put Kirsch over here. No, this Kirsch. Yeah, there we go. He looks good there. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Welcome to episode number 41 of the Dugout Report. I'm here with NBC LA, Michael Duarte, and I'm excited to have him on to preview the wildcard matchups and preview the potential ALDS and NLDS matchups this weekend and more. So welcome.
Thank you, as always, Alex. We got a new setup now, a new background for the playoffs. We got Kershaw, Freddie. We got the 2024 World Series trophy. Yeah, you like that, right? You know what's even better than the World Series trophy, bud? The ring. The World Series ring. It's been a long time since Phillies fans saw one of these babies. Sorry.
That's right.
Let's break it down. Let's break down the wild card. I'm ready.
Okay. So we have game one of the day is Tigers at Guardians at 1 p.m. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Man, Tigers and Guardians, what a great. So it's funny because in the AL wild cards, we get four teams total and divisions going against each other. AL East versus AL Central, with the right to go on to play the Blue Jays or the Mariners in the West. And so I'll tell you one thing I've learned, Alex, over the years when it comes to these division matchups. And honestly, Alex, it's not just in baseball. It's in football. It's in basketball. It's in any sport. When it's a team that you play a lot and you play them frequently over the season, like these division matchups, and I would just say, thank God, it's now 11 games instead of 19, because playing the same team 19 games in a season just was too much. But when you play them that much, there's a familiarity with them, and you just know them better than, sometimes themselves. It's why the Diamondbacks were able to beat the Dodgers in 2023 and the Padres were able to beat them in 2022. So, that's a long-winded answer, a way of saying that what we're going to get to see here is we're going to get to see the Guardians and the Tigers, who met in that penultimate series before the end of the year. Obviously, the Tigers had a 15.5 game lead over the Guardians, and they completely blew it, and the Guardians caught them. And so that's, to me, is going to be a really, really good series against two teams. And I don't know. I think if you're the Tigers, you trust that you have Tarek Skubal going for you, and he's an ace. If you're the Guardians, you think maybe the longer the series goes, you have it. So I'm going to say that series goes 3. And believe it or not, Alex, I'm going to say the Tigers win that series.
Game 2 of the day is Padres at Cubs at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And what are your initial thoughts on that matchup?
Tigers Cubs is going to be another great matchup, as we just discussed. Cubs, the Cubs were fighting for that, to hold off the Padres so they'd be able to host that series at Wrigley Field, which I think is going to bode well for them. To me, that's another crazy series. I think it's another close toss-up. I know Matthew Boyd's going against game 1. I haven't seen if the Padres have announced the starter for game 1 yet. I'm sure it's out there, and I just don't know it.
It's Nick Pivetta.
It's Nick Pivetta. Nick Pivetta game 1. That's what I figured. He's their best. And then you might see Yu Darvish game 2 probably. And then I could see Cease or Michael King. I know what. Give me the Cubs in 3. I think the Padres have not been playing great baseball as of late. Matthew Boyd's been great for the Cubs. You're going to see Shinya Mata at some point in that series. So give me the Cubs in 3. I think both of those series we just talked about, Tigers, Guardians, and Cubs, Padres, goes 3.
What are your thoughts on the offense for each team?
On the Cubs, Padres series?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is two teams that offensively, I think those are their strong suits. I would even argue maybe the Padres bullpen is a strong suit. So if they get a lead in that Cubs series, watch out. That's not something you're going to want to see late. But look, as I was saying, as far as for the Padres lineup, Nico Horner to me is going to be an X factor for the Cubs. Dansby Swanson obviously been great. Kyle Tucker probably had a down year, but it seemed like he was kind of turning around late in the season. Pete Crow Armstrong, obviously an all-star, but he kind of fell off a little bit in the second half. The Cubs are building something good. They got my old friend Justin Turner over there, who we miss here in LA every day. I just like what the Cubs have been building this year. They've been a little more consistent than the Padres. Obviously, the Padres have Bogarts and Machado and Tatis. That's their murderer's row, those 3 really good guys. But they're going to be without Ramon Liriano, a guy they got at the trade deadline this year. They've been playing really well offensively, especially late. I think they put up 12 runs the last game. Ryan O'Hearn has been great, had a grand slam. That's been a good pickup for them. Obviously, Jackson Merrill. I think that offensively, the Padres maybe have the nod over the Cubs. I just think the Cubs have been playing really good baseball all season, and they're starting pitching, especially with Amanga and Boyd, maybe a little bit better than the way the Padres have, but I think the Padres have the better bullpen.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on, what are your score predictions for the first 2 games?
Scores, I'm not sure. I think the Cubs win game 1, Padres win game 2. It goes 3. I think the Tigers win game 1, Guardians win game 2, and then the Tigers win game 3 and win that series in 3.
So we go to the Bronx, New York, where the Red Sox will play the Yankees in the wild card series. What are your thoughts on that one?
That one, again, like we said, we're getting to see probably one of the greatest rivalries in all of sports, Red Sox, Yankees. And as we kind of saw in the mid-2000s when they met in the playoffs a bunch, and obviously the Red Sox with Dave Roberts, current Dodgers manager, stealing second base in game 4 of that series, helping the Red Sox come back. The only team in baseball history to come back down 3-0 in a series to go on to win the World Series and break the curse in 2004. So, again, we get to see Red Sox, Yankees again. Garrett Crochet versus Max Fried. That's going to be an insane pitching matchup. I'm really excited for not only that matchup, but that series at total. I think of all the wild card series, to me, that's my favorite one I want to see because you get old school Red Sox, Yankees again. Now, with all of that said, Alex, I like the Yankees to win in 2. I like them to sweep this series. Obviously, they have the home field advantage in the Bronx in New York. I think because it's a division opponent, the Red Sox could play them well. I wouldn't be surprised if they squeezed one out. But to me, they say in stocks, right? The Yankees stock has been surging over the last few weeks. They caught the Blue Jays and took them all the way down to the final game of the season. Both teams won. So the Blue Jays hold on to the division, even though they say they exited with the same record, the Yankees and Blue Jays. To me, the Yankees have been absolutely hot. They're flying all cylinders at the right time. I like them to win that series, and then I like them to go on and even maybe get all the way to the American League Championship Series. So I think the Yankees actually sweep the Red Sox in 2 in this wild card series.
And next, the Reds at Dodgers. I know that you'll be covering every one of those games and hopefully seeing them travel to Philadelphia to play my Phillies.
Yeah, hopefully. That's what I think. What baseball wants to see, what everybody wants to see, and I would joke and say, I don't know anything about that series, but no, that's the series I know everything about the most. Look, if you are any team in the playoffs, American League or National League, I don't think you want to play the Dodgers right now. And I'm not saying that as a kid who grew up in LA and rooted for the Dodgers and now as a journalist covers the Dodgers as an adult. I say it objectively as a baseball insider. And I know the Reds have been peaking really, but to me, it was more about the Mets blowing that lead to allow the Reds and Giants and Diamondbacks to kind of get into that final wild card spot, right? Because the Mets just had 2 different losing streaks of 7 games or more over the last month and a half of the season, just absolutely blowing it, allowing these teams to catch up. Now, look, hats off to Tito Francona and the Reds. It seems like everywhere Tito Francona goes, he has success. When he's manager of the Red Sox, he gets them over the hump. They win the World Series. They go to the playoffs. He goes to Cleveland. They get to the World Series. They go to the playoffs almost every year. He gets to the Reds now, and he's got the Reds in the playoffs, ending a 12-year drought. But this is one of those examples to me where kind of like the Red Sox right now, or kind of like the Cubs even. Sorry about that. Kind of like the Red Sox or the Cubs right now, you have a team that is young still. They have a young roster, young starting pitching, and I think they're just right now they're happy to get into the playoffs, right? To get this experience. And right off the bat, if you're the Reds, you get the reigning, defending World Series champions. And that's a tough task for any team in the playoffs right now. But as I mentioned, you get them at a time when their starting pitching is at the peak of their powers. You could argue even with Clayton Kershaw, the Dodgers have 6 starting pitchers that could be pitching in game 1 of a playoff series. They've just been absolutely phenomenal. The offense is clicking at the right time. They just swept the AL West, winning Seattle Mariners. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot to play for, and the Dodgers had a bullpen game, and they rested a lot of guys, but they're peaking right now. They've won 5 in a row. To me, it's a team you don't want to play because you had a chance to take them down. The Padres had a chance to steal the division from them. They couldn't get it done. The bullpen was susceptible, but every time the Dodgers kind of get knocked down, they get back up, and so now this is what they play for. They play for October. They have an absolutely sensational starting pitching staff. A lot of those starters, Emmett Sheehan, for example, Tyler Glasnow, they're going to go in the bullpen in this wild card series against the Reds. They can be unleashed at any time. The Dodgers have found a new reliever sensation in Roki Sasaki. You could argue a 7th great starter they have. So everything's going right now really well for the Dodgers. And if you're a team like the Reds or any team, I just don't think you want to see them right off the bat. The Dodgers' experience, I think, is going to play well in this series. The big weakness they have is that bullpen. So I think the Reds, the Phillies, any team that sees the Dodgers in the playoffs is going to try to get that starter out early and get to the bullpen because they think that's where they're vulnerable and that's where they can capitalize off this team. And so I think that's going to be the Reds' strategy. But to me, you look at their lineup, a lot of guys, no offense to the Reds lineup, not put fear into any Dodgers fans, if I'm being honest. Especially if you look at the last half of the season. In fact, the best hitter on the Reds lineup against the Dodgers this season has been Gavin Lux, their old friend. He just seems to be hitting that pitching staff well. So look, Ellie De La Cruz is probably their best player, but he struggled against the Dodgers. If he gets on base, I know he's going to be aggressive and steal runs and try to run on some guys, but the Dodgers have been good, especially Ben Rortvedt there. Friedel hasn't been necessarily great at the top of that lineup. Marte, Steer might face a starter against right-handed pitching. Look, I just don't think the Reds are there yet, but they're building in the right direction. I think what helps the Reds in this series, Alex, is that they're playing with house money, right? No one expected them to be here. Nobody thought the Mets would collapse. Nobody expects them to beat the mighty Dodgers, so they got nothing to lose, and they can come out there and maybe play free. And sometimes you can, jump on a team and surprise them in that way. But I think with the Dodgers, you got 2-time Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell on the mound for Game 1. You have Yamamoto, who's probably going to be a finalist for Cy Young Award in the National League this year. Obviously, Paul Skeens is going to win it, but he's going to be right there in the conversation in the top 3. And then you have Shohei Ohtani lurking if it should go to 3. So to me, the Dodgers are just too talented this year with starting pitching. Last year, if you remember, they had a plethora of injuries, and they went in with Yamamoto, who had only been off the IL for a month and a half and had never pitched in the postseason before in Major League Baseball. He was a rookie. You had Walker Buehler in his worst statistical year ever. You had Jack Flaherty, who you picked up at the trade deadline and had been riding all the way through the playoffs. And then that's it. You had no other healthy starters. And then you had a bullpen. And so they had a great bullpen that they rode throughout the playoffs last year, but they won the World Series with 3 healthy starters, and 2 of them in struggling for most of that campaign, and 1 they picked up at the deadline. This time they have 6, you could argue 7 really, really good starters, and I think that's going to bode well for them in the postseason.
What did you think about how their workout went earlier tonight?
Yeah, I thought the workout went great. They stayed fresh. I think the biggest concern for the Dodgers was they wanted to find out who could be potentially that last roster spot for them on the position player side. The biggest question mark for the Dodgers entering the postseason starting Tuesday is whether or not their all-star catcher, Will Smith, who had a fractured hand on September 3rd, show my hand, against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He played in a game 5 days later on September 9th at Dodger Stadium. He didn't know his hand was fractured. Played in the game, had a double, but it was his hand swelled up the next day. Further scans revealed that he did have a fracture, and so he hasn't picked up a baseball in 3 weeks. And today at this workout, Alex, was the very first time Will Smith picked up a bat and faced live pitching. He faced Bobby Miller. He faced Kyle Hurt. He didn't have any hits, but he didn't come out of it looking like he was injured or that hand was bothering him. He ran the bases. They also looked at Alex Call as far as guys they faced. Hae-Seo Kim faced pitching. Max Muncy, who's had a little bit of oblique injury the last couple months of the season, he was in there facing those pitching. So they were really looking at guys that are kind of like on the fence, question mark guys, to see how they go. So really for them, it's did Will Smith do enough today in this workout to guarantee himself a spot on the wild card roster on Tuesday? And that's going to be a tough decision for the front office. They may decide, let's keep him off the roster so we can get him a few more days of rest and healthy if we are to advance against the Phillies in the NLDS. Or they may say, let's keep him as an option, as a pinch hitter off the bat. An all-star Will Smith, who was leading the National League in hitting for 5 months out of the season this year, maybe that's a great weapon to unleash late in the game, pinch hit bat off the bench. So maybe he makes the roster as a pinch hitter. You still start Ben Rortvedt as catcher. You do 3 catchers on the roster with Dalton rushing as well. And maybe he gets on the roster that way, and you can still not, put a lot of risk on that hand because you can just be a pinch hitter late in games if you need him. So that's another option the Dodgers have. And like you said, when they have so much talent pitching offensively, these are what we call here in Los Angeles champagne problems, right? Do we add an all-star catcher who was leading the league in hitting for 5 months to the roster, or do we save him for the next round? Those are champagne problems the Dodgers have right now.
What are your thoughts on the other side of the bracket?
Which side of the bracket?
Like
in the National League or American League?
Like Seattle, Blue Jays, the other teams that are waiting for to play.
Oh, okay. So the teams that are getting buys, right?
Yeah.
So to me, look, it seems like the Blue Jays are kind of going down at the right time, falling down at the right time. I think the Yankees catching them actually was a good thing for them. It kind of caught them fire, get them competitive. They had a good last series there. And they have good starting pitching, especially when they got Justin Bieber. Not Shane Bieber, not Justin Bieber, especially when they got Shane Bieber at the deadline. So I like what the Blue Jays have as far as starting pitching. To me, though, Seattle has a nice pathway, right? I think you'd rather play the Tigers or Guardians than the Yankees. So you're looking at Yankees, Blue Jays, Again, AL East opponents killing each other, fighting for the division for the last few weeks of the season. And then hopefully Seattle can get past Detroit or Cleveland, and then Seattle can get the winner. I like Seattle coming out of the American League. And if not, I could see the Blue Jays or Yankees there as well. And then the other side, on the National League side of the bracket, look, the Brewers have been the best team in baseball all year. To me, their starting pitching terrifies me, especially if the Miz is healthy, if McGill is healthy as their closer out of the bullpen. But it always just seems like the Brewers have a really good team and they just aren't very good in the postseason, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised if the Cubs or Padres, and like I said, I'm predicting the Cubs get through the Padres in 3. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cubs actually upset the Brewers to get to the NLCS. That wouldn't surprise me at all. The Brewers have also never played from a position in this new playoff format where they have the best record, where they get a bye and they have to wait 5 days to play. Is this going to throw off some of their rhythm at all? I'm not sure. I know the Dodgers, every time they play in it, they struggle, especially early. And I could see that happening to the Brewers as well, whereas a hot Padres or Cubs team could go there and make it interesting, especially the Cubs. But then that leads us to, which I'm sure your next questions are going to be, and that's the final side of the bracket, where the winner of the Dodgers-Reds would play your Philadelphia Phillies. Fans who are watching this video and not as an audio podcast will see Alex is wearing his Phillies t-shirt right now. To me, the winner, if the Dodgers are fortunate enough to, there it is, if the Dodgers are fortunate enough to advance past the Reds, which I think they will, I hope they will, to me, that Dodgers-Phillies NLDS, best of 5, which makes it even more riskier, right? More of a crapshoot. The winner of that series will go on to win the World Series. You heard it here on Alex's Baseball Podcast, talking the potential matchups. Winner of Dodgers-Phillies, if that's what we get in the NLDS, that's going to be your World Series winner this year.
Yeah, I agree. Everything that you said, and it all starts in like 9 or actually like 11 or 12 hours from now, and
That's right.
I'm really excited. I'm excited to see what happens in the wild card round, especially the first day. I feel like the adrenaline from the players, from the fans all around the country is just going to be above water, and it's definitely going to be something to look forward to, and it's just the start of a fun ride with everything for what's to come. And I'm looking forward to your coverage, Michael, at Dodger Stadium. I'll be tuned in to every game, and hopefully we'll get a Phillies Dodgers matchup.
Fingers crossed, but I hope we will, and I think we will. And then I'll be seeing you. Well, I'll be there Friday night, but I'll see you probably Saturday sometime at the bank.
Thank you for taking the time to come on.
Absolutely. So let's go, Phillies fans. I want you to be rooting for the Dodgers in this wild card series so that we get a Dodgers-Phillies NLDS like everybody wants.
Thanks again.
Thanks. All right.